Okay.
This hearing of the Watertown Licensing Board is in session. It is Thursday, October 15, 2020, 7:15 p.m. 7:20 p.m. I am Donna Doucette and will be presiding over the hearing this evening. Assisting me is Board Member John Labadini. Assisting us are Attorney David Dineski and Licensing Board Clerk Julie Casello. Per the governor's standing order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law to avoid group congregations, this meeting is being held via remote online technology. As posted by the town on the agenda publicized for this meeting, there are 4 ways to participate: by simply observing via cable TV, by joining this meeting online or by telephone, and prior to this hearing by sending a written comment to be read at the appropriate time during the hearing. Please note that as with in-person meetings, public comments and applicant presentations are limited to specified times during the hearing. At those times, in order to comment, simply click the raise your hand icon and our meeting monitor will unmute each person in order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the September hearing minutes. Mr. Labadini, do you have any corrections or changes to be made to those minutes?
I do not.
The minutes stand approved as written. The next item is the Pequasit Erie number 1928 Fraternal Order of Eagles, 44 to 46 Mount Auburn Street, new officers and directors. And I see that Ken Leitner has joined us. Mr. Leitner is the attorney for Pequasit Erie number 1928. The letter that was sent on October 8, 2020, following the previous hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Watertown Licensing Board has continued its hearing on the application of Pequasit Erie number 1928 of the Fraternal Order of Eagles, holder of an all-alcohol beverage license exercised at 44 to 46 Mount Auburn Street, for an approval of a change of its officers and directors. This application was originally scheduled for hearing on February 20, 2020, and was continued at the request of the licensee to March 19, 2020. On account of the novel coronavirus COVID-19, you think after all these months I could pronounce that without stumbling, the licensing board did not meet again until May 21, 2020. At that time, the board acknowledged a request from the applicant's attorney by letter dated May 15, 2020, for a further continuance to the board's July meeting. At the July 16 meeting, the board acknowledged a request from the applicant's attorney by letter dated July 16, 2020, for a further continuance to the board's August meeting. And at the August 20 meeting, the board acknowledged another request from the applicant's attorney by letter dated August 19, 2020, for a continuance to the board's September meeting. A further request for continuance was made by letter from the applicant's attorney dated September 17, 2020. The continued hearing on this application will be held on October 15, 2020. The meeting will be held remotely via Zoom. It may be accessed for audio only by phone using meeting ID. Meeting also will be televised. Please note, if the applicant is not ready to proceed with the hearing at the October 15 meeting, the licensing board may elect to take other action, including enforcement action with respect to the license. So, Mr. Leitner, you are here. Okay, you are muted still. Let's see, you will have an icon in the lower left corner.
It won't let me in.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Chairperson, board members, Kenneth Leitner on behalf of the Eagles. wanted to get on the agenda for the meeting so I could speak to you in person as to the delay that's going on. As you know, during the earlier months of COVID, the Eagles were closed. They were allowed to reopen in July. They had a new annual meeting in August in which they elected officers, which put them behind the 8 ball. That was done and it was effectuated for September. We were a little bit behind getting the paperwork. They filed the paperwork with the Secretary of the State for their officers, and they've partially filed with the ABCC, but nothing was completed timely. And we really apologize, but we just need another month to get it back together. I will assist them with the paperwork so we can get it properly filed. We do have the queries we need, waiting for one more. And Tim Eaton, who's the manager, has put together the proper filing for the ABCC. We just have to perfect it and send it in properly, and then copy the clerk with the paperwork. And it's just a situation where they were behind from the beginning, and we're just trying to catch up. And I apologize for taking your time and having to bring it to you, as opposed to having to come with it being completed so you can pass on this matter.
I think I'm concerned that you have officers and directors who can't execute the required filing of forms, which is a pretty basic step. That doesn't give us great comfort in thinking that they can discharge their obligations regarding an alcohol license.
No, I understand your point, and I think it's the finer points that they're missing. I do think that they run the shop very well, but I did speak with Mr. Eaton, who works diligently at it, and I think we can get everything back on track, and I'll assist them through this month doing so.
Mr. Labadini, do you have questions or comments?
No, I'm certainly empathetic to the fits and starts I'm seeing personally and professionally. So certainly understanding that these things are happening, given all that's going on.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation for the continuance? What would be that date, Julie?
November 19th.
November 19. Mr. Labadini, would you like to make a recommendation?
Yeah, I would vote. I would be in favor of another continuance, and their counsel. I'd say if you need till the end of the year, or something of that nature, instead of coming back every 30 days, or just. But yes, I'm in favor of the continuance.
You are in favor of continuing. I do not recommend that it extend to the end of the year, Mr. Leitner. We started this in February, and you ended up having overlapping with yet another annual meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So this becomes a never-ending cycle. All of the other clubs and towns, clubs and social clubs and organizations like this in town have managed to meet their obligations. So unlike Mr. Labadini, I'm certainly not feeling very favorably towards further extensions. And I would expect that on November 19, we would have all of the completed forms and be able to finalize this matter.
We will have them.
Okay. Mr. Dineski, do you have enough information for writing the continuance letter?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. This matter will be continued until the November 19 hearing.
Madam Chair, I just want to state it's nice seeing everybody again. See you next month.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Condesa Watertown LLC, doing business as Condesa Restaurant and Tequila Bar, 80 Arsenal Yards Boulevard. This is a status hearing continued from May 21, 2020. I will read that letter. Notice is hereby given that the Watertown Licensing Board has continued its hearing on the status of the all alcohol common victualler license approved for your exercise at 485 Arsenal Street. The hearing was originally scheduled for February 2020. It's a lot of 20s. After notice to the license holder of the board's desire to confirm when operations under the license, which was approved on July 18, 2019, would begin. At that time, the licensing board continued the status hearing to March 19, 2020, after acknowledging receipt of a letter dated February 19, 2020 from counsel for the applicant, stating that no knowledgeable person was available to attend the hearing on behalf of the licensee. On account of the novel coronavirus COVID-19, the licensing board did not meet in March or April, and the matter was deferred until the meeting of May 21. On May 21, Roberto Leon reported that he expected the building in which the restaurant is to be located, and which is under the landlord's construction control, to be finished in July. At that point, the licensee would start the premises fit-up work. Andrew Copoletti, representing the landlord, Arsenal Yards LLC, stated that the project goal is to turn the building over in late July, but that construction had been severely impacted by COVID-19. He noted that the pre-pandemic count of workers at the site was 450, but is now at 150, and requested a continuance until the fall of 2020. The board voted to continue the status hearing to Thursday, October 15, 2020. It has not yet been determined if the board's meeting on that date will be in person or via remote internet meeting platform. Further notice will be provided as it was. I see that Mr. Leon has joined us. Will you be speaking for Condesa this evening?
I will.
Thank you. So how's it going?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
How is the construction going and the startup and everything else?
Well, we applied for the permit this week. So we are expected to start construction as soon as that is approved by the town.
When you say expected to start construction, what does that involve?
Doing our build out for the restaurant.
Okay, so no work has begun yet.
The premise was handed over to us in last week of September, I think. So
Okay.
we just filed for our permitting.
Okay. What is the timeline you have now?
We are shooting for, all things considered and, everything going according to plan. We are shooting for a March 1st opening.
Okay, Mr. Wilder, I see that you are here representing Arsenal Yards. Are you here to speak to this topic?
Yes, I'm here in obvious support of Roberto and his brother, who have put a lot of time and energy into this. And I have to give them a lot of credit for staying the course during the last 6 months of this pandemic. He and his brother, exactly the type of restaurant operators that we want in Arsenal Yards. And they're honestly the type of entrepreneurs that we want to support during these challenging times. So I'm very happy and pleased that they will be starting and opening in the springtime. Unfortunately, our delivery was delayed as a result of the pandemic, but we are now back in full force. And Roberto has a great team, great architect, great contractor to get this started, and we're anxious for him to open.
Thank you. Mr. Leon, what types of considerations are you making, if any, in the construction and the build out regarding the restrictions and the requirements related to COVID-19?
Well, the construction, that won't change much as far as the construction goes, but as far as the sitting capacity, we'll, hopefully, who knows what, that can happen in 5 to 6 months. Hopefully, whatever the state guidelines are, we'll follow them to a T. So if we're at 30% capacity, then, that's what we'll have to have available for our guests. So
I'm
we're
reading
looking-
about some restaurant difficulties that occur because the space that is involved is not conducive to spreading tables out 6 feet apart when that is necessary. Will that be a situation that might occur in your facility?
No, well, the restaurants that we operate right now, we've been able to, do everything that's possible to have the table space out 6 feet apart. And in the event that we can't do that, an example, a perfect example would be from Dessa and West Warwick. We have put plexiglass so to divide, to have a shield between tables. So,
Okay.
it's an extra expense to us, especially being a small business owner, but you have to do what you have to do to survive.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Labadini, do you have questions for Mr. Leon?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to recommend that we continue this hearing we'll continue it to March 1st. I'm sorry. What's the March 2021 date, Julie?
It would be March 18th.
Okay, I'm going to recommend that we continue to March 18, 2021. Mr. Dineski, before we vote on that, is there any language we need to include that will allow us to confirm to the ABCC that we want this license to stay in force?
Madam Chair, I think the information you have this evening is sufficient to report to the ABCC on the status and that the license is renewed with the expectation that the premises will be complete for 2021 occupancy. I do expect the ABCC will be seeing a lot of asterisk or hybrid comments for this year's renewals.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Labadini, I have recommended that we continue this status report hearing to March 18, 2021. Do you agree?
I do, Madam Chair.
Thank
I'm
you.
with you on that.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we will see you in March.
I'm sorry, I raised my hand. I'm not sure
Oh,
if you
I
saw-
missed you. I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Wilder, yes?
No, if I may ask, why is this being continued? I mean, he hopes, Roberto hopes to open March 1.
It is, yes, the reason we have it is that we know from experience that often, especially when as much construction is called for as this is, that timelines slip. It is a way to keep open the checkup on the restaurant and on the license so that we don't have to restart everything again if a problem occurs.
But I mean, we've been through lots of problems over the last 6 months. We're finally now moving forward, and I'm concerned that
Until the license is exercised, it is our duty to keep tabs on it and make sure
Right.
that it doesn't become a pocket license or that other problems do not occur as a result.
Right. But is there a date prior to March 18th that you could continue it to?
Well, yes, but the longer we wait, the better it is for Mr. Leon so that he can inform us prior to March 21 that he's open and ask us if he has to show up in March.
Right.
So,
But I would say, and I don't want to speak for Roberto, but a great restaurant like him, he doesn't want to open without being able to serve liquor. That's
Right.
part of the dining experience.
right.
If he's ready for March 1st.
I have
I'm not
Mr.
sure
Leon.
why.
I have a question. David, maybe you can give me some clarity here, being on the board less than a year. So if they asked for a continuance until February? Do they have bandwidth to come back and ask early if construction goes ahead of schedule? I'm a little confused too now.
The reason for this proceeding, quote unquote, is merely status. And it's not a disciplinary proceeding, or it's not a condition. Once the construction is complete and the required inspections have taken place, the license may be issued. So I agree with the chair that a longer continuance in a situation like this is to accommodate the license holder. And if there's a report that it is ready sooner, then would probably not have need for anyone to appear at the March session.
We would simply
I'm sorry.
read the communication.
I'm
that
sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay.
Mr.
So
Leon,
the grant,
Mr.
I was
Leon's
just
been
saying-
trying to speak.
Sorry, no, I think the attorney, David, has answered my question. So if we're ready to open March 1st, and we've passed all of our inspections, obviously, then we wouldn't have to attend the March 18th hearing. Am I understanding that
correct.
correctly? Okay,
Right.
fair enough.
That's
Thank you so
that's a
much.
standard procedure for us when we have status hearings like this. We set the time far enough in advance that we presume the license holder will have sufficient time to remedy whatever the problem the status hearing happens to be addressing is. In this case, you were issued a license in 2019, and if not for COVID, probably would be in operation already. However, let's say something terrible happened. It has happened in this town before. Your construction person absconded with the funds and you couldn't get anything built out. And here it is almost 2 years later and you're still not in operation. That is something that requires us to explain to the ABCC and to ensure that the license will ultimately be exercised. So all of these status hearings are us discharging our responsibility to keep track of licenses that are in the hands of those who are expected to execute it and that they're doing it properly. Now, most of that explanation, I understand that you know, it was for the official record, which we have to explain everything we do. Let me note that board member Sandra Hoffman has now joined us. Thank you, Sandra. That means she got rid of the parent-teacher conferences very fast.
Oh, they were over at 7:40. They're only scheduled till 7:40.
Okay. So this matter will be continued until our March 18 hearing, at which we hope not to see you, Mr. Leon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Madam Chairman, thank you
Yes.
for, thank you for that clarification. I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
Okay.
That's very good. I want to make a request,
Mhm.
and it's unofficial, but if the board would consider it, that what Roberto is facing and a lot of other local retailers are facing has been pretty dramatic over the last 9 months and delaying of opening. And we've seen a lot of restaurants close. We've seen a lot of retailers go out of business. As a result of this pandemic, they are now being hit with another year of fees. So they paid
Okay, well, let
$2,000.
me stop you right there, Mr. Wilder, because the next item on our agenda happens to be a discussion about alcohol license renewal issues. So because it is not pertinent to Condesa Watertown, let's delay your comments or interrupt them at least so that we can bring up the next item on the agenda. Okay?
Very good.
So the
Thank
next item on the agenda is alcohol license renewal issues for 2021, applications and fees. First, I'm going to ask Ms. Casello to report to us on inquiries that have come into the office and which I believe prompted this, this item on the agenda.
Yes, I've had several calls, a few emails. I can read you one of the emails. Well, this one is actually a little bit different. But I'll go over the calls first. They have called asking if we could lower or waive the fees. I said that we would have to discuss it. We do have a program through Watertown for small businesses that they can apply for a grant through the town. So I've been trying to let people know that. But like I told the cinema that hasn't been able to open, they can't apply for it. They're a huge franchise. Unless you are a restaurant with 5 or under, Watertown does have something that you can apply for help. Big ones you cannot. So a lot of people are asking me, mostly the ones that are under Chapter 73, which we don't make those fees, the town council does. I did have a couple people approach the town council. I have not heard back from anyone, so I'm not sure where it stands with that, but I do understand that the licensing board has nothing to do with the fees for the special Chapter 73. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's my next stop. Have you completed your report?
Yes, because the other one I spoke to David about, so I don't know how he wants to address that with the talk. So that's a little bit different.
Right,
It's about the fees, but a different situation.
right. Mr. Dineski, my understanding is that the fees for the special licensing district were set by the town, but that they are set as multiples of the fees that are paid by the pre-existing licensee, liquor licenses in the town. The top fee for an all alcohol in license, for example, in a regular, under the regular license is $2,700. Same with an all alcohol 7-day common victualler. The lowest would be an $850 renewal fee for an all alcohol veterans club, but the ones that are primarily applying here are the all alcohol 7-day or 6-day licenses, perhaps an all alcohol package license. I do not recall if that was actually in the package for the special licenses. Also the wine and malt 7 and 6-day common victualler licenses. If the legislation and the town council set those fees as multiples of the regular licensing fees that we have, can this board reduce or waive those fees? And by doing so, sort of automatically reduce the fees for the special licenses? Or is this a matter that we need to resolve case by case? Or is this a matter that the town council must resolve because it's the one responsible, if you will, and responsible in a way that was certainly extremely correct to preserve the value of the local restaurants that had already obtained licenses, but which now has become onerous because most of these are establishments that weren't in business and can't fully function right now as a result of COVID-19. So it's a lot of questions to you at once.
I think it sort of resolves, Madam Chair, down to the one point though. For those licenses that are issued under Chapter 73 of the Act of 2016, it is, as you say, the town council that sets the fee. So it's that body's purview and jurisdiction if there's going to be a revision at all to the fees for those licenses.
Okay, so our actions on regular licenses would not affect the Chapter 73.
I don't have in front of me exactly how the council did the fee setting, but I wouldn't want to take a prerogative or an item of discretion from the council without it having notice. And so I don't think and would not give an opinion that anything that this board could do with respect to its own fees would bind, if you will, the town council without
Okay.
further action.
Okay. Mr. Wilder, I interrupted you before when you wished to speak to this matter. So please continue, if you will. Unmute yourself first.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just wanted to make the request. I wasn't sure if it was the purview of this particular board, but it is certainly an important issue for Roberto and his brother and for any restaurants in town that have been delayed as a result and having to pay the annual fees.
Right. Okay. Ms. Hoffman, Mr. Labadini. Well, first, Julie, let me ask you this. You indicated that most of the requests you have received have come from the people who have the special licenses and are paying $8,000 to $10,000, whatever it is, for
100.
yeah, for their renewal fees with absolutely no income to offset it, and no idea at this point of when they will have income to offset it. Have you received any requests from those who are under our own purview as to the fees?
I have, and the ones that I have are small enough that I've been sending the link to apply. The town is giving a grant. There's special hoops they have to jump through, but anywhere from three different implements, I think it's $5,000, $6,000, $8,000, and $10,000 that they do not have to pay back. It was just brought to my attention this week.
Mhm.
So I have contacted the ones that are small enough. It has to be employees of 5 or under. It can't be a franchise. It's like your mom and pops, like
Right.
New Ginza or Delina's, a small place that doesn't have more than 5 employees. And there's a bunch of stuff that they have to submit to the planning board with it. But that's who I sent that to. So I was able to help them be able to apply for help. And they may get denied. The planning department is trying to stay in touch with me to let me know who is getting approved and kind of check in with me. They have to check if they're in good standing, they have a business certificate,
Right.
and all of that stuff. So they have approved a couple so far. And then today I sent out more emails to let more
Mhm.
restaurants know.
Okay. One of our considerations also is that the licensing fees are revenue for the town. It's not a huge amount, but it is a consideration. Mr. Dineski, does the board have leeway to consider only requests from license holders, or only the requests that come to us from license holders for a reduction or a waiving of fees, or should we simply discuss a blanket option for waiver or reduction of fees? And considering that this is a source of revenue for the town, is this something that we first should discuss with other town officials?
Madam Chair, to your last point first, I do think it's something on which the various town bodies involved should confer before there's action that conceivably might be inconsistent with what another body is planning. I would also say that my recommendation would be to implement something that would be across the board.
Right.
One example, I don't know all the details. Others in the meeting may be familiar with the discussion that had taken place just most recently in Newton with respect to renewal fees. So it's certainly an issue that is on the horizon, if you will, for local bodies that have to act on permit and license renewals. And I do think that to the extent possible, a coordinated approach would be best so that everyone would have the same information and be subject to the same rules, if you will.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Hoffman, do you have any thoughts you would like to share on this matter?
No, but I completely concur with what David Janeski just said. I was thinking the same thing as far as making the changes across the board and working with other departments or stakeholders,
Right.
if you would,
Mhm.
in the town.
Mr. Labadini, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think we should unintentionally usurp the town council or anything else and all the things David said. So I would have some thoughts down the road of you know, you want to give people as much help as you can, and if that means the waiving or deferral or what have you. But it doesn't sound like we're the people that should be judge and jury at that thing, of those things at this point. So I guess I'd want to table my thoughts till I had more information, but I agree with David.
Okay.
For now.
Mr. Leon, you wished to say something or you had a question?
No, I was just going to say that in this very difficult year for a lot of business owners and like myself, where we've been shut down for, months on end, March and April and May were very difficult to do business in, obviously across the board for many businesses. But any help or anything that would come our way would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
I know other towns have taken some action to lower the cost for renewals.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dineski, would you please, well, my recommendation to the board is that we send a letter to the relevant town departments indicating to them that at our November hearing, we will consider adding to the agenda an item that discusses the reduction or the waiving of fees for licenses that come up for renewal in December, January, and February, because there are some other licenses that may be coming up for renewal as well. And I know that common victular licenses also have a certain time on them. I think it's later in the year, but just in case. And then if you would please create the letter, send it, and then Ms. Casello, if you would share those contents with us, and we will determine whether it is appropriate to put it on the agenda for a public hearing on our November hearing, which is what date?
November 19th. But
November 19th.
By November 30th.
It is cutting it very close, yes. But if we need to consult with the other town departments and we need a public hearing to discuss it, at which there may be town departments that want to come in and talk about it as well, because they may feel that it's taken up. But let's start with the town departments. That would be my recommendation. Ms. Hoffman?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mr. Labadini?
I agree.
Okay, that's what we will do. That's all the items I have on my agenda. Ms. Casello, are there any other comments that you wish us to consider before I close the hearing?
No.
Okay. This
Madam
hearing-
Chair, I'll just make one brief statement,
Sure.
just so this, the first fee issue that came up related to a request from a state agency regarding how it might be subject to fees that are required. I think that the board can include that topic in the discussion we've just laid out
Okay.
for November, and that we don't at this point need to take any further action, but just so that we can represent to the folks who inquired of the
Mhm.
town that we've heard them and we will be taking action subsequently.
Okay, thank you. Regarding an issue that is tangentially related to this, but may involve other matters as well, regarding the talk. Is there any further action that we should be taking or commentary we should be indulging in this evening regarding that situation?
Nothing further at this point, in my view, Madam Chair.
Okay. Then this hearing is adjourned. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Hi, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hi.
Bye.